It was interesting to see people's reactions to the hazard tape, as there was a lot of people on their lunch hour at certain points, and I think people found that it was quite annoying having this tape blocking their way. It reminded me of maybe a gallery space and the way that you walk around a gallery space, the way that you're guided around certain objects and certain sculptures, and then on the other hand, sort of roadworks in the way that we're directed through the city. Maybe to question the way we take signs and the way that we are sort of conforming to society, to see how you control space and control the way that people walk around space. So to block off an area that is usually used by pedestrians is quite an interesting topic.
At first I felt a little confused because I thought I was just reading a timetable, and then I realised it was one of those sort of number puzzles that you might get in a Sunday Times supplement, and I don't think a lot of people actually realised what it was. I think it was a lot bigger than maybe they thought it would be, so they're really confused, especially some like sort of young teenagers. I just don't think they knew what it was. I think it was a lot to do with like stress and kind of boredom, getting around like, you know, tedious situations. I guess in that sense the artist is trying to say, you know, don't get so annoyed, the bus will be there soon. A bit of escapism, I suppose, for people who are just waiting, bored, probably cold, you know, buses are unreliable. People's imaginations start to run, you know, you're at a bus stop, nothing's happening, you think about all the things you've got to be doing at home, you're getting annoyed, just something to take your mind off it really.
Well, I was very excited. I can't quite remember whether I received it in the post or whether I just kind of it just came across it. Afterwards I was so proud of it, I had just had it pinned up on the board. It was great. I was dead chuffed. Everyone could see what I'd done. It reminded me of, I don't know, like a kindergarten, the Chapman Brothers Consequences, colouring in at kindergarten, and I like that, I enjoyed it. Having fun is good. Having fun's good. That's it.
It made me feel slightly detached and overbearing, sense of euphoria. I found it very hard to negotiate my way around the city as it was, and therefore elevating some sense of theoretical justification for what he does.
So although this was an installation piece, I thought it was very English. The allotment is an English thing. Edward Burrough, watercolour, you know, there's still like carrying on that tradition. Nostalgic, actually, you know, the old idea of the allotment, your dad would take you down there on a Sunday morning, do a bit of digging, all that sort of stuff, you know. It took me back, you know, back to the 50s. It's quite interesting in terms of that, you know. Made me think about local connections, permaculture, stuff like that, you know, one step at a time, rather than global, all that stuff. One of the things they're trying to do is to sort of get us aware that there's global problems, things like that. But the reality is, I think when you get down to it, there's nothing as good as a good cabbage and you start looking at it, yeah.
On the one hand, with the old photographs, it made me think of people like Susan Hiller and Tom Phillips, who take found objects and manipulate them. The urban grittiness made me think more of maybe someone like Stephen Willis. Because it was a number of artists who created the piece, you got different viewpoints, and it shows you that there are valid ways of looking at something from different angles. I was particularly taken with someone who'd taken photographs, well not photographs, but old postcards of views of the city and subtly manipulated them in Photoshop. In contrast to that, I thought the people who'd done the sort of wish you were here cards, which showed wheelie bins and detritus and double yellow lines, had a slightly less romanticised view of urban life.
Everybody
gets badges, and then comes together at a venue at the end. Emotionally, it's cheered up, slightly jovial. A response to the periphery and the like city centre with situationist literature, things which probably it's much more kind of community playful, I think playful.
Well, it certainly contrasts with a lot of videos I've seen recently in exhibitions where you get projections from 4 sides onto 4 walls and you don't know where to look, and it becomes very busy, and this was quite a contrast to it. I'd like to see it again. It was quite interesting, stimulating, especially as it started off with the silence, and I couldn't hear anything. Perhaps this wasn't meant to be. I need to find it out again. But it was a silent pause in a hectic day to find your inner self.
I think they were trying to sort of express like maybe you don't need to make an art, you just need to propose an artwork, and therefore it exists. I don't know. It made you question the possibilities of an exhibition. Sort of like a bureau of art in a sense. Maybe not art in itself, but a bureau along those lines. It was quite a challenging exhibition.
I think they were just trying to get across the historical aspect of it and try and appreciate the building and its situation in the Leeds area and try and bring it into the modern age. Some of the casting work looked quite familiar, but not in relation to any of the artists, but the photography as well. It reminded me of a lot of work I've seen at Careless. It made me appreciate the building and its history. It was very informative. I could understand a bit more where it was from and its history in relation to the Leeds area.
I've never seen a catalogue of hypothetical residencies before in an art exhibition, so there was like an element of critique in this sort of addressal of like the situation of like getting an artist's residency, play upon the futility of like a bunch of artists attempting to get support, the absurdity of their position as trying to like work within the confines of getting residencies and commissions and such. A kind of piss take, I think.
It reminded me of this thing I saw at Alexandra Palace Theatre, this like abandoned theatre in London, and it was like this thing where it was a completely black room and then this chair lit up and you sat in the chair and then it lit up bits of the theatre and then there was this like curtain bit. It was quite cool. Contemplative, excited, kind of intrigued, red, I'm getting red, I don't know what that means. It's to do with one of those anti-misogyny things, you know, female equality, Eve-like, Miltonic, you know, something.
The place I chose outside Leeds, centre of Leeds, was a place in Hyde Park, a gallery, and something that I find interesting, and obviously gallery space is always interesting and I hold close to my heart. It reminded me of kind of not hodgepodge places, but places that are very personal, very human, rather than being kind of very industry and made up and over-generated. As a whole, being there and seeing the information and being in the place, good, interested, excited about the situation and the people and a sense of humanity, I think.